Morning in Meilin village always began the same way. Farmers led their oxen down the dusty road. Children carried baskets of vegetables to the market, and the bun lady's store sent clouds of warm, sweet steam drifting into the air. The sound of wooden wheels creaked, chickens clucked, and hammers echoed from the blacksmith shed. But this morning, something else stirred above the rooftops. The shock cry rolled down the lane, louder than the rooster's crow. Villagers looked up, blinking against the sunlight, and there he was, Shah Hosey, the yellow-brown monkey with quick fingers and quicker feet, perched like a king on the curved tiles of the bun lady's roof. His fur glowed in the morning light, and his round eyes glittered with mischief. In his little hands, he clutched a fat, golden peach. Where had he gotten it? From the farmer's cart, of course. No one had seen him take it, but everyone knew. With a squeal, he bit into the fruit, juice dripping down his chin, and smacked his lips in the most exaggerated way, just to tease the crowd below. "Not again," groaned the bun lady, waving her rolling pin at the sky. Flour puffed into the air with every shake of her hand. "My best peach," cried the fruit seller, hopping on one foot as if his anger might lift him to the roof. "Catch him! Someone catch that monkey!" yelled the fisherman, still arranging his morning catch. But no one could catch Zal Hosey. With a wiggle of his tail, he darted across the roof tiles, his poles clattering noisily. The villagers chased him from the ground, waving brooms and baskets, but he was already 3 steps ahead. He leapt from one rooftop to another, nimble as a sparrow. A tile slipped loose and crashed to the street, making the children squeal. But Shah Hosey didn't care. He was laughing in his own monkey way, a bubbling chatter that echoed off the walls. Children, of course, loved every second. They pointed with sticky fingers, shouted with joy, and clapped like they were watching a festival performance. "Look at him go," one boy cried. "He's faster than a kite," shouted another. Even the littlest ones, too young to understand, bounced in their mother's arms, giggling at the fairy mischief maker. The chase rolled through the entire lane. Shah hosed his zigzag across the rooftops, grabbed a dumpling from a steaming basket as he passed, then tossed a half-eaten bun into the air. It landed with a plop right on the fishmonger's head. The crowd roared with laughter. The fishmonger roared too, but not with laughter. Still, the bun lady tried to look serious, though the corners of her mouth twitched. She muttered, "That monkey will eat me out of business one day," but her eyes were soft. Everyone knew that even the angriest scolds in Meilin would have missed him if he never came. Shah Hosey knew it, too. That's why he paused on the temple roof, peach still in hand, chest puffed out proudly. He squealed and raised a fruit high above his head like a trophy, as if declaring himself champion of the village. Sunlight caught his fur, making him look almost golden against the morning sky. For a heartbeat, the market stilled. Everyone stared, villagers, children, travelers passing through. And in that moment, Shah Hosey wasn't just a thief. He was performer, a trickster, the heartbeat of Meilin's laughter. Then he stuffed the last bite of peach into his mouth, gave a cheeky bow, and vanished in a blur of fur and tail into the bamboo beyond the rooftops. The children clapped wildly. The adults groaned, counted their missing food, and shook their heads. But one thing was certain: as long as Shah Hosey danced across their roofs, no morning in Meilin would ever be boring. The bun lady of Meilin was no ordinary cook. She had the strongest arms in the village, a voice that could be heard 3 lanes away, and the softest, fluffiest buns anyone had ever tasted. Every morning the smell of his steamed baskets drifted over the market like a warm blanket, and everyone, from children with sticky fingers to farmers with muddy boots, lined up for a taste. But after yesterday's peach incident, she was on edge. "That rascal monkey," she muttered while rolling out dough. "He stole from me last week, and I'll be ready if he tries again." She set her rolling pin close at hand like a god keeps a spade. High above on the tiled roofs, Shal Hosey twitched his tail. The smell of buns reached him easily, sweet and tempting. His eyes glittered with mischief. He had made the villagers laugh with peaches, but today, buns were calling his name. With a squeal, he scampered across the roof, scattering a pigeon into flight. Eek eek. The children spotted him first. "Look, it's him," they cried, pointing and jumping. The bun lady glanced up, squinting. "Not today, you thief," she warned. "These are for paying customers." But warnings never slowed Shal Hosey. In a flash, he dropped from the roof beam and landed beside the steaming baskets. The crowd gasped. With both paws he reached in, snatching 2 fresh buns that still glistened with steam. He stuffed one into his mouth and clutched the other to his chest. The bun lady swung her rolling pin with surprising speed. Whack! It missed by a whisker, but startled him enough that one bun slipped from his grip. Plop! It landed in a bucket of water with a sad splash, the white cloud sinking fast. Shal Hosey squeaked in outrage, leaping away with the remaining bun. The chase began. Across the rooftops he ran, bun clamped between his teeth, tail trailing behind like a streamer. Villagers shouted from below, pointing and laughing. A farmer waved his hat, a shopkeeper rattled a broom, but no one could catch him. The children toured through the lanes, their giggles ringing louder than the temple bell. Shal Hosey bounded toward freedom until, with perfect comic timing, the bun slipped again. It fell straight into the fishmonger's bucket, right on top of a wriggling cap. Splash! Water leapt high, drenching the unlucky fishmonger, who sputtered and shook his head. The monkey skidded to a stop, eyes wide. His prize was gone again. The children collapsed in laughter, some rolling on the cobblestones, tears in their eyes. Even the bun lady let out a chuckle. "Serves you right," she called, wiping flour from her cheek. But Shal Hosey was not finished. Oh no! With a grin as wide as the temple steps, he darted back down, shoved both poles into the steamer, and came up with another bun. He bounded to the roof, holding it high like a champion. "Eek eek!" he cried proudly, cheeks puffed out with joy. The bun lady raised a rolling pin again, but this time she was laughing. The children clapped and cheered, the officer shook his head with a smile, and even the fishmonger, dripping wet, began to laugh at the ridiculousness of it all. With one final leap, Shal Hosey disappeared into the bamboo grove beyond the rooftops. Leaves swayed as he vanished from sight, and his chatter echoed faintly like a playful song. The bun lady sighed, shaking her head. "That rascal," she said warmly. "He may steal my food, but he brings a village more laughter than any festival." The crowd nodded, and the children still giggled long after the monkey was gone. For the rest of the day, whenever someone bit into a bun, they couldn't help but smile, imagining the daring thief who had stolen one right from under the bun lady's nose. The market in Meilin smelled different that morning. Instead of buns and pies, the strongest scent came from the fishmonger's stall. Buckets brimmed with silver cop, shiny scales catching the sun. On a wide wooden board, neat rows of fish lay like jewels, their fins stiff, their mouths half open as if still telling watery stories. From the tiled roof above, Shal Hosey licked his lips. He had eaten peaches and stolen buns, but this was something new. His tail swished slowly, like a cat ready to pounce. Down below, the fishmonger hummed a cheerful tune, proud of his display. He even muttered to himself, "No monkey will outsmart me today. Nets are strong, buckets are deep." That was enough to make Xiao Huzi grin. A challenge? Perfect. He crept along a narrow beam, eyes fixed on the biggest prize of all, a fat grasshopper resting in a tub of water. The tub shimmered in the sunlight. Children gathered quietly near the stall, nudging each other and whispering, "Look, look, he's planning again." Liang, carrying his basket, pointed up with a smile. "Watch his tail. It always wiggles before he makes trouble." Sure enough, the tail twitched faster. With a sudden leap, Xiao Huzi swooped down toward a string of small dried fish. The fishmonger spun around, cloth in hand. "Aha!" he barked, waving it like a flag. The monkey squeaked and darted back up, his paws leaving tiny wet prints on the beam. The children burst into laughter. Plan B. The monkey stretched low over the tub. He dipped one paw into the water and shrieked at the icy cold, shaking droplets everywhere. The cop flicked its tail, unimpressed. The fishmonger crossed his arms. "Go ahead," he muttered. "Try." Xiao Huzi spotted a bamboo tray leaning nearby. With quick jerks, he dragged it across the beam until it made a wobbly little bridge. The crowd gawked. Liang's eyes went wide. "He's serious." The monkey grabbed a wooden ladle and scooped under the cop's belly. For a heartbeat, it almost worked. The cop shifted upward, water splashing over the rim. Then chaos. A smaller fish slid across the tray, bumped the cop, and the cop leapt high, spraying everyone. Splooch! Xiao Huzi tumbled headfirst into the tub. Water exploded into the air. The market froze for half a breath, then erupted in laughter. Children shrieked. Auntie Lin dropped a cabbage. The bun lady clapped her floury hands. Even the fishmonger bent double, laughing until his hat slipped. The monkey popped up, soaked and blinking, for a plastered flat. A slippery fish slapped against his chest before sliding back into the bucket. He grabbed at it wildly, but it wriggled free. He looked around, as if betrayed by water itself. For a moment he seemed offended. Then, with comic dignity, he shook himself from head to tail, showering the crowd with droplets. "Hey!" the fishmonger cried, though he was still grinning. Xiao Huzi bowed dramatically, paws together like a traveling performer. Then he scampered up to the temple roof, leaving wet paw prints behind him. Children clapped and cheered. Before disappearing into the bamboo, he paused by the great bronze gong that hung under the temple eave. He poked it with one finger. Dong! His eyes lit up. He poked again, harder. Boom! The sound rolled across the village. Pigeons burst into the sky. Villagers covered their ears, and the children laughed so hard they nearly fell over. Xiao Huzi hugged himself with delight, squealed his monkey song, and vanished with a flip of his tail, leaving the gong humming like a sleepy bee and the village smiling from A to A. The temple were the end of Meilin's market lane was usually a place of quiet. Incense smoke coiled like ribbons into the air, bells chimed softly in the breeze, and old Chun the caretaker dozed on the stone steps with his staff across his knees. Pilgrims left bowls of rice or bright oranges, and the bronze gong under the eaves gleamed like the sun itself. It was a place for prayers, not pranks. But Xiao Huzi did not care about rules. That afternoon, after his bun adventure, the monkey swung through the bamboo behind the temple. He crept along the low wall, nose twitching at the scent of oranges. He poked his head through the gate and saw the courtyard almost empty, just old Chun asleep, pigeons pecking in the dust, and the great gong hanging in the shade. The gong caught his eye. Round, golden, polished so bright it looked like a captured sun. Saw Hosey scampered closer, tail curling with excitement. He leaned forward and saw his own reflection staring back. Wet nose, bright eyes, for sticking in silly directions. He puffed his cheeks at himself. The gong monkey puffed back. He stuck out his tongue. The gong monkey did the same. Children who had followed him through the lane gathered by the gate, whispering and pointing. "What's he doing?" one boy asked. "He's looking in the gong," said another, giggling. With a cheeky grin, Sal Hosey reached out a paw and tapped the center. Gong. The sound was low and soft, like a drum hidden underground. His eyes lit up. He tapped again, harder. Dong. Dridgeons flapped their wings. Then, with both hands raised high, he smacked the gong with all his might. Boom! The courtyard shook with sound. The children screamed, half in shock, half in delight. Old Chen jerked awake, nearly dropping his staff. The pigeons exploded into the sky like a cloud. And Sal Hosey? He leapt back in surprise, then clutched his belly and laughed his monkey loaf. Eek eek eek. As if he had just told the funniest joke in the world. The gong still hummed, long and loud, filling the air with golden waves. Sal Hosey tilted his head, listening, then banged it again. Boom. Louder, funnier, sillier. By now the market villagers had come running. The bun lady held her rolling pin. Auntie Lin carried her cabbage basket, and the fishmonger was still damp from the morning splash. They crowded at the temple gate, covering their ears but laughing anyway. "That rascal will bring the roof down," the bun lady shouted. Old Chun shook his head but couldn't hide his smile. Even the gods must be awake now. Sal Hosey hopped onto the rim of the gong, tail wrapped around the beam. He gave it a gentle tap tap tap, making a playful rhythm. Tap, tap tap, tap. It sounded like a drumbeat for dancing. The children clapped along. Soon the whole gate was filled with laughter, hands keeping rhythm to the monkey's silly music. At last, satisfied with his concert, Sal Hosey gave one final dramatic bow. He grabbed an orange from the offering bowl, stuffed it in his mouth, and scampered up the temple roof. From the highest tile he squealed proudly, orange juice dripping down his chin. For glowing in the sunset light, the gong's hum slowly faded, but the laughter of Meilin carried on long after the sound was gone. And everyone agreed, a monkey's mischief could turn even the quietest temple into the liveliest stage. The sun was already high when the farmers of Meilin began to gather in the lane. It was market day, which meant not only baskets of vegetables and barrels of rice wine, but also the proudest display of hats. Wide straw hats of the fields, tall conical hats for travel, and even a few colorful cloth caps brought out just for show. Among them was Farmer Jin, who always claimed his hat was the biggest, strongest, and most handsome in the whole county. "Made it myself," he boasted, patting the brim. "Thick straw, tight weave, keeps out sun and rain. No hat in the world like mine." Sal Hosey, of course, was listening. From his perch on the tiled roof of the tea house, the monkey tilted his head. A hat? He had stolen peaches, buns, even tried fish. But never a hat. His tail curled with curiosity. He imagined himself strutting through the market with a wide brim shading his mischievous eyes. The thought made him chatter with excitement. The villagers went about their business, unaware of the furry eyes watching them. Children munched on sweet cakes, women haggled over cabbages, and Farmer Jim stood tall, showing off his hat like it was a crown. That was all Sal Hosey needed. With a squeal, he launched himself across the rooftops, tiles clattering under his paws. He leapt from beam to beam, then swooped low, tails streaming behind him. Before Farmer Jim could blink, the monkey landed squarely on his shoulders, and with one quick tug snatched the hat right off his head. "Hey!" roared Farmer Jim, grabbing at empty air. "Give that back." But Shao Hosey was already gone, scrambling up the wall with the hat clutched proudly in both paws. He jammed it on his head at a crooked angle, the brim so wide it nearly covered his eyes. The crowd roared with laughter. Children pointed, shouting, "Look, he's a farmer now." The bun lady leaned on her stool, chuckling. "A better farmer than Jin, I think." Shao Hosey strutted along the rooftop, lifting the brim with one paw like a gentleman greeting his fans. He bowed to the crowd, spun in a circle, and nearly toppled off the edge when the hat slipped over his face. The children laughed so hard they doubled over. Farmer Jim shook his fists. "That hat took me 3 weeks to weave," he shouted. But even he couldn't stop his grin when Shao Hosey began parading back and forth, tipping the hat like a nobleman. The monkey tried wearing it sideways. He tried balancing it on his tail. He even stuffed a pole through the top and waved it like a flag. The hat wobbled and flopped, but somehow stayed with him through every trick. Finally, with a squeak of triumph, Shao Hosey crouched low and rolled forward in a somersault, hat and all. He tumbled across the tiles, popped back onto his feet, and raised a hat high above his head like a trophy. The crowd clapped and cheered as if he were the star of a circus. "Bravo!" Liang shouted from under the cypress. Shao Hosey paused, panting happily. He peeked under the brim, eyes shining, then let out a squeaky laugh. He placed the hat gently on the roof beam, gave it a respectful pat, and scampered off toward the bamboo, tail flicking like a brushstroke in the air. Farmer Jin retrieved his hat, dripping with sweat but still intact. He wiped it on his sleeve and set it back on his head. "Well," he muttered, though his eyes twinkled, "at least he knows a fine hat when he sees one." The villagers chuckled, and the children danced through the lane, pretending to be monkeys with imaginary hats of their own. And so another ordinary day in Meilin had become extraordinary, thanks to one mischievous monkey who believed a farmer's hat could be a crown. Laundry day in Meilin was always colorful. From one house to another, ropes stretched like rainbow bridges, carrying shirts, trousers, and scarves that danced in the breeze. Children ran below, laughing as the shadows of the fluttering clothes fell across their faces. Up on the roof, Shao Hosey twitched his tail. His eyes sparkled at the sight of the flapping fabric. To him, the clothesline wasn't just a drying, it was a soaker's rope waiting for a star. With a playful squeak, he leapt. The line dipped under his weight. Shirts wobbled, socks bounced, and a pair of wide farmer's trousers swayed dangerously. From a window, Auntie Lin gasped. "Not my laundry," she cried, but the monkey was already testing each piece like a curious tailor. He poked a paw into the big trousers. One paw disappeared, then another. Soon he wriggled until a waistband hung around his chest. From below, the villagers howled with laughter. He shuffled forward, looking like a walking pair of pants with a tail poking out the back. The rope creaked. Shao Hosey peeked out from the waistband like an actor behind a curtain. Everyone was watching, waiting. So he hopped. Once, twice, boing. The trousers bounced with him. On the third jumped, a line snapped loose from a peg. Down he tumbled, trousers and all, straight into a wicker laundry basket. Towels burst into the air like fluffy clouds. For a moment he vanished, then his head popped out wearing a towel turban, eyes wide with comic dignity. The children screamed with laughter. Auntie Lin covered her face but giggled through her fingers. Even the one lady leaned on her stool, shaking with mirth. Shao Hosey wriggled free, holding up a bright red scarf he had landed on. He'd tied it around his shoulders like a cape, puffed out his chest, and strutted across the courtyard. "The monkey captain!" Liang shouted, and the crowd cheered. With his cape fluttering, Xiao Houzi marched up a bamboo pole set across two wolves. He balanced carefully, trousers still tangled around his legs, and struck a heroic pose in the middle. For a heartbeat, he looked like a general leading an army of socks and shirts. Then, whoop, the scarf slipped over his eyes. He tripped, scrambled, and barely caught the windowsill. Gasps rose from the crowd, but he managed to pull himself up and plop safely onto the ledge. The villagers burst into applause. From inside, Farmer Jin's wife appeared, lifting the trousers he had left behind. She raised an eyebrow, then gave a small smile. "Thank you, Captain," she said. Xiao Houzi squeaked proudly, saluted with both paws, and bounded back to the rooftops. His cape streamed behind him like a banner until he vanished into the bamboo. That evening, as shirts swayed gently in the sunset breeze, villagers still chuckled. Whenever the clothesline creaked, someone whispered, "Hear that? The monkey captain is marching again." The evening bells of Meilin rang softly, calling the villagers to finish their market errands. The sky glowed orange, roofs gleamed, and the scent of dinner drifted through the lanes. Steam rose from rice pots, garlic sizzled in woks, and skewers of roasted meat sent smoky trails into the air. From his perch above the tea house, Xiao Houzi's nose twitched wildly. His stomach gave a loud growl. He had stolen buns, splashed into fish buckets, and strutted in trousers, but nothing smelled as good as a feast that floated through the rooftops now. He licked his lips. Tonight, he decided, he would dine like a king. Down below, families were setting out dishes in their courtyards. Platters of dumplings, bowls of noodles, sticky rice wrapped in leaves, and golden sesame cakes fresh from the griddle. The villagers laughed and passed chopsticks, never suspecting a pair of eager monkey eyes watched from above. With a squeal, Xiao Houzi leaped across the tiles. He landed on a roof beam and dangled upside down to peek into one courtyard. A family was gathered around a steaming hot pot. Bubbles rose and burst in the broth, releasing a smell so rich the monkey's tail curled in delight. He stretched his paw just a little closer when the father lifted a ladle. Hot steam puffed into the monkey's face. "Eek!" he squeaked, jerking back and tumbling onto the roof tiles with a clatter. The children inside looked up in surprise. Was that? But the father only chuckled, thinking it was a wind. Not discouraged, Xiao Houzi crept along to another courtyard. Hey, dumplings were piled high in a bowl, so plump they looked like tiny pillows. The monkey crouched low, calculated his jump, and sprang. Thump! He landed right in the middle of the table. The family gasped. Chopsticks froze in midday. The monkey grabbed two dumplings, stuffed one in his mouth, and shoved the other into his cheek like a greedy squirrel. His tail flicked as he tried to grab a third, but the table shook, bowls rattled, and a teacup toppled with a clink. "Shoo!" shouted the grandmother, waving her fan. The dumplings scattered like pearls. Xiao Houzi squeaked and bounded away, half-chewed dumpling puffing from his cheeks. He raced across 3 rooftops, skidding to a stop where another family had hung sesame cakes on a bamboo pole to cool. The golden circles swayed gently in the breeze. Perfect. The monkey snatched one, then another, until both paws were full. He leaped to the ridge of the roof and sat proudly, stuffing his mouth. Crumbs sprinkled down the tiles like tiny stars. Below, children clapped and pointed. "Look at him. He's having a feast." The bun lady folded her arms, But even she couldn't hide her smile. "He's going to roll home instead of walk," she muttered. With his belly filling, Hosey leaned back against the chimney. He wore a sesame crumb beard and looked very pleased with himself. But greed never rests. His eyes drifted toward the temple, where a plate of offerings, bright fruit, sticky rice cakes, and one shiny red apple, waited under the gong. His tail twitched. One more treat. Just one. He bounded across rooftops, tail streaming behind like a banner. At the temple courtyard, old Chen was dozing again, staff resting on his knees. The monkey crept closer, paw by paw, until he hovered over the offering plate. The apple glowed in the twilight. Quick as lightning, Hosey grabbed it. But as he lifted the prize, his paw brushed the gong. Dong! The sound echoed through the evening air. Old Chen woke with a start. "You again!" he barked, but the monkey was already halfway up the beam, apple clenching his teeth, giggling all the way. From the rooftops, Hosey raised the apple high like a golden treasure. The villagers laughed, clapped, and shook their heads. "A feast fit for a king," Liang said. And for that night, the mischievous monkey sat under the stars, munching happily, turning Meilin's rooftops into his very own dining hall. Autumn nights in Meilin were never dark. When the Festival of Lanterns arrived, the streets filled with light. Dozens of red and gold paper globes swung from poles, glowing like captured stars. Children carried little lanterns shaped like rabbits, fish, and dragons, their faces painted in warm flickers of fire. The air smelled of roasted chestnuts, sweet cakes, and pine smoke from 100 braziers. Hosey watched it all from a rooftop, his paws pressed to his cheeks. His eyes shone brighter than the lanterns themselves. To him, this wasn't just a festival, it was a playground of fireflies too big to catch. The monkeys squeaked with excitement. "Eek eek!" From below, children pointed upward. "There he is! The rascal want a lantern too." The bun lady waved a rolling pin, though she was smiling. "If he sets fire to my stool, I'll chase him all the way to the mountain." But Hosey had no plan for fire. He only wanted one glowing treasure to call his own. He scampered down the tiles, tail curling, and reached for a dragon-shaped lantern that swayed low from a bamboo pole. Its paper scales shimmered orange and green, and its painted eyes seemed to wink at him. He stretched, grabbed, snapped, and the lantern tumbled free. The crowd gawked as a monkey scrambled back to the roof, holding the glowing dragon in both paws. The fire inside flickered dangerously, but instead of fear, Hosey squealed with delight. He shook the lantern, and its light danced across the rooftops like a moving sun. "Careful!" shouted old Chun, hurrying from the temple steps. "Lanterns are for guiding, not for playing." But Hosey was already running, lanterns swinging wildly. Children chased below, their own little lanterns bobbing like stars on strings. The monkey dashed across a beam, ducked under a hanging scroll, and leapt over a line of drying clothes that still sway from laundry day. The dragon lantern bumped against a pole, thump, and suddenly tore, sending sparks up in a tiny shower. The crowd cried out, but the sparks fizzled harmlessly against the damp night air. The monkey froze, eyes wide. For once, he looked almost guilty. Then he saw something better. A boy in the lane was carrying a lantern shaped like a fish, painted blue and silver, with fins that fluttered in the breeze. Hosey squeaked, dropped the damaged dragon, and bounded down. The boy yelped and held his lantern tight. For a moment, monkey and boy stared at each other. Then, with a grin, Hosey snatched a string and leaped skyward. The boy burst into laughter instead of tears. "Catch him!" he shouted, joining the chase. Through the market they ran, villagers with torches, children with lanterns, and one monkey with a glowing fish bobbing behind him. He skipped across the roofs, lantern trailing like a comet. The flame inside swayed but stayed lit, glowing blue against a night sky. The fishmonger, seeing the glowing fish dot overhead, cupped his hands and shouted, "That's the only fish you'll ever catch." The crowd roared with laughter. Finally, breathless from running and stuffed with mischief, Shaw Hosey perched on the temple roof. He set the fish lantern beside him and gazed at the glowing village below. Hundreds of lanterns floated in the sky as villagers released them one by one, prayers written on their paper sides. The stars above twinkled back, as if joining the festival. The monkey hugged his fish lantern to his chest, his eyes dreamy. For once he sat still, lit by firelight and starlight. Then, gently, he placed a lantern on the wind and let it rise with the others. The villagers watched as a little monkey bowed to the sky, tail curled neatly, face glowing in the orange light. The morning after the Lantern Festival, Meilin's streets were quiet but still sparkled with color. Paper scraps clung to cobblestones, and a few tired lanterns swung lazily from poles. The smell of porridge and reheated chestnuts drifted through the crisp air. High above on the roof, Shaw Hosey stretched and blinked. His belly still felt heavy from stolen sesame cakes, yet his mind buzzed with a new idea. Last night the villagers had a parade of glowing lanterns. Why couldn't a monkey have a parade of his own? His eyes fell on an empty wicker basket by the tea house door. In an instant, he imagined it filled with treasures, buns, fruit, sticky rice, even a shiny apple. He squeezed with excitement and leapt down. After several comic attempts, once wearing the basket as a skate, once toppling over entirely, he managed to balance it proudly on his head. Children spotted him first. "Look, he's marching with a basket crown." Liang laughed from the lane. "Careful, maestro. That's a tool hat." The parade began. Step by step, Shaw Hosey strutted through the market, knees high, tail swaying like a drum major's baton. The basket wobbled but held. He stopped at the bun lady's stall and bowed deeply. She rolled her eyes but dropped a warm bun inside. The basket gave a dignified puff. At the fishmonger's stall, the monkey tapped the rim like a drum. The fishmonger chuckled and slipped in a grilled fish skewer, carefully wrapped in paper. Auntie Lin added a bundle of greens, shaking her head fondly. One by one, villagers contributed: sesame cakes, cherries, a leaf-wrapped rice dumpling. Soon the basket looked like a patchwork feast. The monkey marched proudly, but trouble followed. A stray dog caught the smell of fish and padded along, eyes locked on the basket. Shaw Hosey quickened his steps, tail rigid. He turned a corner too sharply. The basket tilted. The crowd gasped. For one breath, a sesame cake teetered at the rim. Then, miraculously, it settled back. Cheers erupted, and even the dog barked in approval before trotting away. Old Chun appeared at the temple steps. Pretending stain, he plucked a tiny orange from the offering plate and placed it atop the pile. "Every parade needs a blessing," he said, his beard hiding a smile. The orange glowed like a lantern among clouds of food. At last the monkey reached the square. Children clapped, villagers crowded around. He lifted his chin, marched 3 more steps, then bent his knees and hopped. The basket bounced once, twice, then steadied. Applause thundered. Shaw Hosey bowed as low as he could, balancing his feast. With a flourish, he set the basket on the ground. Everyone leaned in. It gleamed with treats, too much for one monkey. Shaw Hosey studied the crowd, then picked the smallest gift, a single cherry, and placed it gently in the hand of the littlest child. The square erupted in cheers. The bun lady divided her bun into quarters. The fishmonger shared its skill. Auntie Lin told green for everyone. Soon children and grown-ups alike nibbled and laughed, turning the monkey's silly parade into a shared breakfast. Sir Hosey ate last, nibbling a sesame cake with solemn dignity. He patted his belly, placed the empty basket neatly by the tea-house door, and offered one final bow. The crowd applauded as if he were the star of a real festival. Then, with a proud squeak, the monkey scampered up the rooftops, tail flicking like a banner, and vanished into the bamboo once more. For the rest of the day, whenever a spoon tapped a bowl or a basket creaked, someone smiled and said, "Listen, the parade is practicing again." The rains of late autumn had filled the river that curled along Meilin's edge. It rushed fast and foamy, carrying twigs, leaves, and the occasional unlucky sandal downstream. Villagers crossed the old wooden bridge carefully, baskets balanced on their shoulders. The boards groaned, ropes creaked, but the bridge held, as it always did. From a willow branch hanging above the water, Sir Hosey dangled upside down, tail curled around a branch, eyes sparkling with curiosity. He watched people cross and tilted his head. To him, the bridge wasn't just a path. It was a stage. Eek eek, he squeaked, already imagining the fun. That morning, Farmer Jim led his donkey across, basket of radishes bouncing on its back. The monkey swung lower, nearly brushing the donkey's ears. The animal brayed in alarm, jolting forward and nearly pulling Jin into the water. The villagers laughed. "The monkey again!" someone cried. Next came Auntie Lin with her laundry bundle. Sir Hosey leapt from the willow, landed on the bridge railing, and strutted along it like a tightrope polka. The bridge swayed. Auntie Lin squealed, clutching a bundle to her chest. "Out of the way, rascal!" But the monkey only bowed and hopped to the other side. Word spread quickly. The monkey had claimed the bridge. Children abandoned their chores to watch. They perched on the bank, giggling and pointing as Sir Hosey invented games. He dangled by his tail, swinging like a bell. He scurried across the ropes, making them creak and hum like strings on a giant harp. He even grabbed a floating gourd from the water and rolled it down the planks as if the bridge were a toy ramp. "Careful," warned old Chun, who had hobbled down with his staff. "The river is deep and the bridge is old." But mischief doesn't listen. The bun lady was next, carrying trays of steaming bread to sell across the river. The smell drifted upward, and Sir Hosey's nose twitched furiously. He dashed forward, tail high. With a sudden leap, he landed right on top of the trays. Puff! Flour burst into the air like snow. Buns tumbled, one bouncing off the bridge into the water where it bobbed away like a little boat. The bun lady cried out, half angry, half laughing. "You glutton!" she shouted, swatting at him with her towel. Sir Hosey stuffed a bun in his mouth and scurried up the ropes, cheeks bulging, flour dusting his fur. The children on the bank laughed so hard they rolled in the grass. For a grand finale, the monkey clambered to the very top of the arch. From there he could see the whole of Meilin, the glowing roofs, the temple bell, the market square. The river roared beneath him, spraying foam against the rocks. He raised his paws like conductor and bounced once, twice, making the whole bridge groan. "Stop that!" Farmer Jin shouted, clutching his donkey's lead. But the monkey only grinned wider, tail flicking in triumph. At last, satisfied, Sir Hosey leapt back into the willow tree. He hung by his tail, gnawed the last crumbs of bun, and watched the villagers cross the bridge one by one. None of them were angry. They smiled, shaking their heads as if the crossing had been turned into a circus show instead of a tool. And when the sun set, painting the river gold, children swore they could still see the monkey's silhouette swinging above the bridge, like a trickster spirit guarding Meilin's laughter. The rain had stopped in the night. The rain had stopped in the night, leaving Meilin bright and clean. Puddles shone like mirrors between the cobblestones, and the air smelled of ginger tea and damp earth. As the villagers set up their stalls, a gentle clatter filled the street. Pots banging, bowls clinking, chopsticks knocking. On the roof beam of the tea house, Hosey perked his ears. To him, it sounded like 100 little bells calling for mischief. He squeaked, tail curling with excitement. He leaped down to the street and began to explore. First he splashed into a puddle. Plip, splash. Children nearby hopped at him with their shoes, turning the lane into a watery drum. Then he tapped a row of bamboo steamers at the bun lady's stall. Talk, 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 making us scowl but also laugh. Auntie Lynn stacked bowls nearby. One bowl rang with a clear ding. The monkey's eyes lit up. He tapped another. Done. Then arranged 3 in a row and played them like a staircase. Auntie Lynn shook her head but added a 4th bowl, enjoying the game. The fishmonger joined in with a clever grin. He blew across bottles filled with river water, making deep hoo-hoo sounds. Hosey tried and produced only a messy pfff, which made the children howl with laughter. On his second try, a soft no came, and he beamed with pride. Soon the whole market was watching. Liang handed the monkey a stick. A conductor's baton, he said. Hosey twiddled it and bowed grandly. Old Chen thumped his staff once on the stone steps. Boom! Every orchestra needs a drum, he said, pointing at a big rice barrel. The monkey pounded it. Boom! Bap! And the crowd cheered. Now the market orchestra was ready. Steamers for toke-toke, bowls for ding, done, bottles for hoo-hoo, the barrel for boom, ladles and spoons for sparkle. Liang raised his arms. Hosey tapped the baton, and the music began. First came the rain song, with puddle splashes and bottle hums. Then the breakfast march, led by the bun lady's steady taps and the noodle vendor's ladle. Finally came the monkey solo. The monkey tapped the temple gong softly, donk, and the sound rolled through the air like sunlight. Everyone fell silent, smiling at the golden hum. For the finale, all the sounds joined at once. Steamers, bowls, bottles, barrel, spoons. The monkey drummed with both paws, faster and faster, ending with one great boom that shook the square. Silence lasted for a heartbeat. Then cheers exploded. Children clapped. The bun lady tossed him a mini bun, and even old Chun bowed with his staff. The monkey nibbled his bun proudly, tapped the gong one last gentle dong, and scampered back to the rooftops. For the rest of the day, whenever a lid clattered or a bowl chimed by accident, someone would pause, smile, and whisper, "Listen, the orchestra is tuning again." Winter whispered at Meilin's edge, though snow had not yet fallen. The air was sharp and crisp, the kind that made breath puff like smoke. Villagers wore thicker coats, and smoke from kitchen fires hung like a silver scarf above the rooftops. But in the market square, one wall stood brighter than the season, the story wall. Every year the children painted it with leftover festival colors, reds, blues, yellows, greens. Dragons twined beside flowers. Boats sailed beside mountains. Suns rose in corners where no sky belonged. The wall was not perfect. It was alive. That morning, Hosey discovered it. He padded down from the temple roof, tail curling, nose twitching at the smell of fresh paint. A bucket of had stood unguarded by the corner, left by children fetching more water. The monkey dipped one point, squelch, and held it up. His eyes widened. His paw glowed crimson, like fire caught in fur. He chirped, delighted. He pressed the paw to the wall. Smack! A perfect red print, 5 fingers bladed. He tilted his head, admired it, then press another, and another. Soon a trail of monkey hands marched across the wall like an army of tiny ghosts. Children returned and gasped. "His painting!" shouted Liang, running forward. Instead of scolding, the children laughed. They handed him a brush with yellow bristles. The monkey took it awkwardly, then swiped a bold streak across the wall. Swish! A crooked line that somehow looked like a lightning bolt. Soon the square became an art fair. One child painted a dragon head. Shah Hosey added red paw prints for its scales. Another child painted a boat. The monkey streaked blue waves beneath it with his tail, dipping it into a bucket like a brush. Laughter bubbled everywhere as a wall filled with wild, colorful scenes. The bun lady arrived, arms crossed, ready to scold, but stopped when she saw the picture of a giant bun painted near the corner. Sal Hosey, tail dripping with white paint, pointed proudly at it. The bun lady sighed, but her smile betrayed her. "At least you know your priorities," she muttered. Auntie Lin painted her cat. Shaw Hosey dipped his paws in black and dotted paw prints all around it, as if kittens had run wild. The fishmonger painted a fat cop. The monkey added bubbles above it, poking the paint with his fingertips. Even Old Chin approached at last. With deliberate strokes, he drew a simple circle, a gong. Sa Hosey smacked a red paw print in the middle. Everyone laughed at the memory of its booming sound. By midday, the wall was covered in a riot of color: dragons, boats, buns, cats, fish, gongs, suns, stars. At the very center stood the monkey's own masterpiece, a crooked but unmistakable self-portrait. Red face, yellow belly, tail curling like a question mark. He jabbed the brush at it and squealed proudly. "Eek! Looks just like him," shouted a boy. When the last bucket was empty, the villagers stood back. The wall glowed against a winter sky, a quilt of stories stitched in paint. Shah Hosey trotted along its base, admiring each picture as if he were both artist and audience. He paused by his self-portrait, puffed out his chest, and gave a theatrical bow. The children cheered, clapping paint-stained hands. Some of their prints matched his now, a jumble of monkey and human scattered side by side. As the sun dipped low, the wall caught the light and gleam. For a moment it seemed alive, each figure ready to leap into the air. And at the top beam, silhouetted against orange sky, Shah Hosey sat with his tail curled like a brushstroke, looking down at the laughter he had painted into Meilin's heart. That evening, whenever someone passed the wall, they smiled. And if they looked closely, they swore they saw a small red paw print higher than any ladder could reach, right at the corner of the roof. Proof that the monkey had left his signature above the mole. A sharp winter breeze swept through Meilin, rattling shutters and tugging its leaves. It was a kind of morning perfect for flying kites. Children poured into the square with bamboo frames and reels of string. Paper scraps in red, blue, and yellow fluttered like leaves. On the rooftop, Shah Hosey watched with shining eyes. He loved lanterns, drums, and parades, but kites were something new. They floated like playful clouds, and he wanted one of his own. The monkey scrambled down to the market. He dipped his paw into a pot of rice paste, sniffed it, then stuck his tongue in by accident. "Eek!" he squeaked, making the children giggle. Liang handed him 2 bamboo sticks. "Cross them, like this," he said. So Hosey copied clumsily, but his twine knot somehow held. They gave him a sheet of yellow paper. The monkey pressed it over the frame, then slapped a red paw print in the center for decoration. He dotted more prints around the edges, tail swiping a smear of blue across a corner. A red ribbon was tied to the bottom. The monkey kite was ready. By midday, the field beyond the market filled with color. Dragons painted with scales, swallow kites with sharp wings, even one shaped like a bun drifted into the wind. The monkey clutched his reel, tail curled, heart racing. Let them go. Lean cold. Strings hummed, tails fluttered, and the sky blossomed with kites. Shah Hosey's bright yellow kite jerked, then lifted. It rose above the patties, tail wagging like a happy banner. The monkey squealed, feeding out string, hopping from foot to foot. But the river sent a sudden gust. The monkey kite yanked hard, nearly pulling its mate off his feet. Shah Hosey dug in, paws gripping, teeth clenched. His heels slid 2 furrows through the date. Laughter and gasps mixed in the crowd. Instead of letting go, Shah Hosey did what came naturally. He climbed, poles over poles. He scrambled up the string until he reached the frame itself. The kite wobbled wildly with him clinging to it, but then he grabbed the tail ribbon with his toes and swung it. Left, right, steady, like steering a boat. The kite leveled, gliding smoothly again. The villagers erupted in cheers. Even old Chun tapped his staff once in approval. "Assistant Wind," he declared solemnly. The monkey squeaked proudly, hugging the kite frame before inching his way back down the string. Liang caught him and set him on the ground. The kite soared high without his weight, steady in the winter air. All afternoon the sky shimmered with flying colors. The dragons swooped, the bun kite bobbed, the monkey's yellow star danced among them all. When the sun dipped, villagers reeled their kites down carefully, laughing and chattering. The monkey sat on the temple step, sharing a sesame cake with Liang. His fur was dusty, his paws sticky with paste, but his eyes were brighter than ever. He had not just flown a kite, he had steered the wind itself. And for days afterward, whenever a gust rattled windows or flipped the scarf, someone would smile and say, "The assistant wind is at work again." At dawn, Meilin woke to white. Rooftops carried soft caps, lanes were sugared, and branches of cypress bent under heavy scoops. Smoke cove from chimneys in slow, grey ribbons. The village whispered. The first snow had come. From the tea house roof, Shah Hosey leaned forward, for dusted with flakes. He stuck out his tongue, caught one, and squeaked with delight. For him, this was sky feather magic. Children burst into the square, mittens clapping. "First snow," they cried. The bun lady wrapped a red scarf twice around her neck and promised hot tea for helpers. Old Chun tapped his staff. "Careful roofs, careful feet." The monkey slid down a drain pipe, chush, and vanished into a drift up to his belly. When he popped up, crowned in white fluff, laughter shook the lane. He gathered 2 polefuls, pressed them together, and stacked 3 lumpy bowls. With worn-out shoe eyes and a carrot nose, a crooked snow monkey grinned at everyone. Liang added a straw tail. Shah Hosey clapped proudly. Play spread fast. Children swept temple steps while Shah Hosey invented roof slides. He scrambled up, wriggled, and shut down toes, landing flump in snowbanks. Cheers followed each daring run. Soon he had a whole circuit, ending with a bowl beside his snow twin. The fishmonger brought a wide board. "Sled," he declared. Children piled on, shrieking, as a board hissed down a slope. Shah Hosey leapt aboard, tail steering like a rudder. He spun them to a stop in a puff of snow, then bowed like a performer. Snow turned the market into music. Broom bristled woof, shovel shink, wool sleeve swish. Even the gong gave a soft dong, as if wrapped in a blanket. The bun lady ladled ginger tea into cups. Shah Hosey blew the steam like a dragon before sloping, eyes shining. Then came the roof clearing. Heavy caps slid in powdery avalanches as villagers tapped with poles. Sal Hosey, self-appointed specialist, scurried along ridges, pushing snow in neat piles. Huff, each full under applause. Until, of course, one pile landed squarely on the bun lady's golf. She froze, then laughed until she bent double. She patted a tuft on his head. "King of snow," she declared. By noon, the square glittered with tracks, boots, brooms, paw prints. The snow monkey wore a second carrot nose and a leafy scarf. Lunch bubbled in clay pots. Broth, dumplings, thin fish slices. Steam wrapped the crowd. Shah Hosey blew on his own small bowl, fascinated as flakes melted in the soup. The afternoon slowed. Children dozed. The stray dog coiled like a cobra, and Shah Hosey delivered runaway hats from branches with polite bows. Each return owned him a peanut or tangerine slice, currency a snow king gladly accepted. As the sun slid down, shadows turned blue and gold spread across the roofs. Old Chun tapped his staff twice, day complete. Brooms leaned, sleds rested, the noodle pot sighed. The snow monkey kept watch by the painted wall, crooked but proud. Sal Hosey climbed to the temple roof, hugging his knees, tail curled around his toes. Below, villagers waved. Above, the sky blushed pink. He pressed a final paw print high on the eave, his hidden signature. That night, as shutters tapped and kettles sang, people whispered, "The King of Snow is on patrol." And Meilin slept under a sky stitched with bright, quiet threads of monkey-made winter magic. Spring slipped into Meilin with soft steps. Plum blossoms dusted the lanes, the river brightened, and the painted wall looked fresher under warm light. Villagers swept porches, shook quilts, and opened shutters. It felt like a new chapter. On the tea house roof, Shao Hosey stretched and yawned. He had been king of snow, assistant wind, parade marshal, but what was spring for? He sniffed the air and spotted a bustle in the square. Children were tying ribbons to a small bamboo table. On it sat fruit, greens, sesame cakes, and a rice cake shaped like a fish. Above, 2 little bells dangled from a string. A sign read, "Monkey Corner." The bun lady clapped her hands. "For him," she said. Liang added, "but with rules." They listed 5. Take from the table, not stools. Ring the bells once to say thanks. No fish bucket diving. No laundry swinging, especially Tuesdays. 1 trick per day. The monkey pattered forward, ears twitching. He studied the sign, then rang the bells, ting, and pressed it paw to his chest. Laughter and applause filled the square. He picked a tangerine, peeled it clumsily, and handed the smallest slice to the lantern boy from the festival. Then he nibbled a sesame cake but set half back on the tray. Bells chimed again. The villagers looked at one another in surprise. "Good manners," Old Chun said, tapping his staff. The day turned festive. Children painted blossoms on the story wall. The market orchestra found spring notes in bowls and spoons, and someone shaped a flower monkey from petals near the bamboo table. Sal Hosey sniffed it, bowed, and, miracle, didn't knock it over. Then came the daily trick. The crowd chanted, "Trick, trick." The monkey considered the gong, the bridge, the laundry line, but instead slid beneath his own bamboo table. With deliberate silliness, he nudged at 3 finger widths left. Ding! The bells rang, then back, ding, then forth again. Children screamed with laughter at a trick that changed nothing yet delighted everything. Approve with one solemn tap from old Chen. Evening brought benches, tea, and stories. Auntie Lin told of a stubborn cabbage, the bun lady of a dragon and spoon, old Chun of a fisherman catching the moon. Then Liang stood with a paper. "It's not a story," he said shyly. "It's a list." He read aloud: King of Snow, Assistant Wind, Bridge Dancer, Painter of Wolves, and finally, Friend of Meilin. Silence, then smiles. The monkey tilted his head. "Friend?" He hopped to the table, rang the bells 3 times, and held up the sesame cake half he'd saved. The bun lady broke it into pieces and shared, leaving the monkey his share lost. As lanterns bloomed, the square glowed with soft gold. People drifted home laughing, carrying the sense that rules had become promises and mischief had become memory. From the roof, Cher Hosey pressed a red paw print under the eave, a secret mark of belonging. He curled his tail, hugged his knees, and watched the village sleep. The bells whispered ting in the breeze, and for the first time, Meilin's monkey truly belonged not to the bamboo, not to the roof, but to the village itself.